Hello. Hi. How are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. Podcast by George is really getting around, folks. We're going to go on the other side of the globe again. We're going to come back and visit our good friend over there, Serge Tiagnyriadno. He's in Ukraine, of course. He's reporting. He's holding out the fort there in his apartment in Ukraine, making great music and making a great statement internationally, really on Facebook. He's become quite the viral celebrity. Some people used to say viral. I think I made that mistake on here once, but we're talking about viral, folks. And let's bring up his little icon there. It's Sergei Tiagnyriadno is a Ukraine citizen, folks. He's a frontman for Leonid and Friends. That's a Chicago tribute band. And their videos have gone viral. I mean, they're all over the internet. They're big on YouTube, millions of views. Leonid and Friends have recorded 3 Chicago tribute albums titled Chicagovich 1, 2, and 3. And after touring in Russia, the band first toured the United States in 2019 and 2018, Earth, Wind, and Fires, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Tower of Power, and the Ides of March. Remember Vehicle? Yeah, the Ides of March. Those songs were added to their playlist. I mean, I just love all of those songs. And, to kind of get going here with Sergey to cover some ground now, I'm going to bring up the most recent reporting here and see if I can make this big now so that I can read it. That's always the challenge. It looks good over my right shoulder, but there we go. Now bring it up big. Ukraine said Thursday that Russia's offensive in the east picked up momentum, with several towns coming under intense attack as Moscow's forces attempt to surround Ukrainian troops. And a reminder of the horrific toll the war has taken since it began February 24th, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited towns outside the capital of Kyiv. Now, that's where Sergei is. And there's evidence of mass killings of civilians found after Russia's retreat from that area. The fighting gathered pace after Russia suddenly cut off natural gas to 2 NATO nations on Wednesday in what was seen as a kind of an attempt to punish and divide the West over its support for Ukraine ahead of the potentially pivotal battle in the eastern industrial region of the Donbass. Now, I would add to that also that Russia required that its gas be paid for in rubles. I think those nations are refusing to do that. Russia did that because of the sanctions imposed against it. It wanted to prop up its currency, I think. But that's all something that we can talk about. Let's bring him in here now and see if we can get this up on screen big and say good morning to our buddy Sergey. Hi, Sergey.
Hello, and good morning to you, and good evening for me.
Yeah, that's right. You're at 6:30 Ukraine time there. I mean, you seem to be on a lot. That's maybe my first question. What are your hours like? How do you, I mean, musicians are known for kind of being late night people, but you're also on early in the morning Ukraine time.
Well, mostly in usual life, I'm getting to sleep pretty late, I think after the midnight, but now you have to be flexible, and sometimes you need to get up early. Well, past few weeks we had relief here in Kyiv, like 3 weeks, and actually we get into normal life and normal sleeping scheduling. But before that, more than a month, I didn't have much sleep, of course, and it was pretty much difficult to return to the normal life after that. Yeah.
Well, as people join the broadcast, let me bring this up on screen. Now, this is my kind of crude attempt at map making here to kind of show where Sergey is located. Now, these arrows are coming down from Moscow here. Here's Kyiv in the center of the screen where he's at. This is you're on a series of waterways here, a big river. I mean, talk about that, where you're located, Sergey.
Yeah, in the middle of the river, Dnipro. It's a very big, very huge river. It actually divides Ukraine to left and right part, the eastern and western. And well, I'm on the left bank, so I'm in danger still, as you
Yeah.
can see. But around Kyiv, like in about 100 miles, there's no Russian troops anymore. They left, so we're feeling much safer now.
Well, you kind of sent them away. The reporting is anyway that they kind of turned tail and ran, but we'll see about that. Now I've circled some other things over here. Mariupol, which is big in the news, obviously, that seems to be of intense interest to Russia. They're wanting to take that port city down there, and the other side of the reporting is that there are some Azov battalion people there. I don't know. Odessa over here, which was earlier in the war, this struggle that's been going on with Russia. And then way up in the top left-hand corner is Warsaw. And Sergey's busy. He probably didn't get a chance to catch the podcast that I had on last week with Bonnie Louise Brown, but she's an activist, and she was reporting live from Warsaw, Sergey, and she's up there feeding and providing assistance to the refugees, the people that have had to flee Ukraine, maybe 5 million of them, including your family. Did they go to Poland? Or are they in Warsaw? Where are they at?
Yeah, they're in Warsaw. Well, my wife is working there for a TV channel, Ukraine 24, and she's pretty busy. And my kids there, and my small dog, Dozy, is with them. So, well, it's tough there because a lot of people really left Ukraine and headed to Poland mostly, and because we understand the language and it's easier to be there, and there's really a lot of help from Polish people. But the problem is that most of Ukrainians left to the big cities like Warsaw or Krakow or Gdansk, and there's really tough to find apartment, for example, and the prices are very high. So that's very challenging for them. But there's not much of refugees right now living physically Ukraine at the border, because when my family left, they spent like 30 hours to cross the border. Now you will just spend 2 or 3 hours, because most people who wanted to leave, they left. And now we have people who are returning to Ukraine, because Kyiv is pretty big city. We had like 5 million of people before the war in it, and probably after people left, here were like 2 million. So a lot of people who do not have any job there in European countries, they are trying to return to Kyiv and do something here.
Now, your wife, she's one of those people with those jobs that you. She's broadcasting out of Warsaw, yes. So they're going to stay there. And the great thing, I'm going to put up the URLs where you guys can follow Sergey. But one of the great things is he does these morning greetings. He does a song every day. He's broadcasting live. It reminds me of the first time that I saw this kind of time stamping was during the Iranian hostage crisis. I was on the air doing the news back in the 80s, and it was day so-and-so, day so-and-so. Well, we're day 64 now. That was Sergey's most recent installment. And his family's been gone since before then, I think. You got to be missing them, Sergey. I mean, it's hard on them, but it's hard on you too, I got to imagine.
Yes, of course I miss them, but when you choose between the safety and that you miss them, you will choose the safety. And well, we don't know, because in Kyiv the life step by step comes to normality. We have public transportation, the metro is working now, and a few bridges are open. So probably in a month or so, even my wife's TV channel will be considering to back to Kyiv, I think so, because for them it's also very expensive to have the crew there, because they have to pay for the rent and other things. But I hope that Russians won't be returning to Kyiv and this part of Ukraine.
Yeah. As I mentioned at the onset, this is going to be a big show, folks. I got a lot of things to show. I want to put the slide deck up, and Sergey's going to comment on this as we go through it. So here's the first slide that I've got. Everybody knows that I'm a huge I love cartoons. I mean, the visual of the artist being able to say so much in just a drawing, and I wanted to start with this because this really struck home to me. It's called Paint at the Pump. And you can see, we're all complaining about the price of gasoline here in the United States, which is the lowest almost anywhere in the world, I think, is here in the United States. Well, look at that mother in Ukraine and a dead child. I mean, that's pain, folks. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And I wanted to show this next slide because you're in an apartment, as I understand it now, Sergey. Is it a high rise like this? Is this similar to where you're located?
Smaller. I have a 9-floor building, and this looks like a 24. But yes, something similar. Yeah.
And you can see here now, this is in Kyiv, and this is after shelling left before, and then the right after it tore into that building. And I, don't know the casualties associated with that, but my God, this is a missile attack on a residential area in Irpin. Now, I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Where's that city at, Sergey?
Yeah, Irpin, you pronounce it right. It's suburbs of Kyiv. Actually, it's almost like Kyiv. So people who live in Irpin, Bucha, and Hostomel, they consider them like they are from Kyiv, actually. So it's pretty close. And yes, there's terrible. That's actually 3 cities very close to each other: Irpin, Bucha, and Hostomel. And that's where a lot of Russian troops were, and that's where we now fighting probably around 1,000 of killed civilians, and most of them with traces of tortures. So they were not just killed by accident shelling, but they did it for some reason, and we still don't know. They just probably tried to scare everybody. That's what I thought.
Yeah, and the Russians, again, they would probably claim that there were military in these apartment buildings, but again, civilians are in there, so you've got to use some discretion. That's a very lame, very weak, non-existent excuse on their part. A missile attack on a council building in Kharkiv. You familiar with this city?
Yes, of course. Well, the band Queen, they supported Ukraine by showing their live show in Kharkiv in 2008. They made a video version of it, and they played this concert in Kharkiv. And this is exactly the place where they played, and we watched this concert, and it was hard to watch because right now you see the photos of this square of freedom in Kharkiv, and it's mostly ruined. And then you see it on a Queen's video there where like 400,000 people were, and it was looking very, very nice. So it's
well, this war shit is horrible, and the people on the far left, like I am here in the States, I mean, we're promoting a ceasefire. We want to see this thing get settled, and there are people that are saying that Ukraine has to remain NATO friendly. They've got to tell Putin that they'll do that. They might have to do something with the Donbass and those easternmost territories over there as far as Russia is concerned. But from Russia's perspective, I keep telling they got to withdraw, obviously. They got to fix this shit that they've blown up. But, Sergey, you can't put people back to life.
Of course, that's the main thing. Well, we can rebuild buildings, we can rebuild roads, but we cannot resurrect people, unfortunately. So, well, yes, we all of our politics, they are talking about ceasefire, and it seems that the goal for the Russian military is not to do some exact thing. They just want to ruin the entire regions of Ukraine, and we do not know what will be next if they will succeed. So unfortunately, we hope for ceasefire, but we see that it's not happening.
Yeah, and I'm just continuing to spin through these slides that I've gotten off of Google Photos. A lot of this is via the BBC, some of it through Reuters. I can't even pronounce this community, but it's an overhead look. What's this? What are we looking at here, Sergey?
Rivnopilla, it's not far from Chernihiv, which is like 2 hours driving from Kyiv from me. And it's a beautiful city. Well, Rivnopilla, it's a small village, but Chernihiv is a very huge historical center. And for a long time, it was a center, cultural and educational and politics center of Kyivska Rus, which was the main, we can call it a country back in 10 centuries ago.
10 centuries ago. That's one thing that I'm always struck by. And I've been to Europe. I mean, I've spent a little time in that part of the world. My God, the history, the historic buildings, the architecture and stuff is absolutely breathtaking. But again, to me, it's all about the people and the loss of human life. As Sergey said, you can rebuild buildings, but by God, you can't bring people back to life. I mean, dying will ruin your day, folks. And I mean, lots of them have already died. And if we don't find a way to put an end to this, a lot more people are going to die. And Sergey, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I started off with the bio at the beginning talking about the band and the fact that it's got this Russia connection. And so do you. I mean, Russia, its people, what's going on up there. They've got huge state censorship up there, huge propaganda coming out of Moscow, as we know. So it's hard for us to understand or believe much of what we're hearing or seeing. How do you, with your background and knowledge, how do you filter through what you're seeing and hearing coming out of Russia?
Well, we have a lot of connections with Russia, of course. A lot of people in Ukraine have relatives there and friends and co-workers. And the most difficult and terrible thing that their propaganda is working. So when people calling them and telling what's going on here, people from Russia saying, "Oh no, that's all fakes. That's just a Hollywood movie they showing you. It's not real. Our military is not killing any civilians. That's not true. We do not destroy our military. Is just trying to release Donbass and release you from some kind of Nazis." And that's the 90% of people that we are talking with there saying that. Of course, there's a lot of people who understand what's going on, but that's not a majority, unfortunately.
We've got a pretty good propaganda machine in this country, too. I've talked about it a lot on my show before the war in Ukraine ever broke out. Now, you've got an eye towards that also. Again, you know what's going on. I mean, you were there. Your wife is a broadcaster, a journalist in Warsaw. So she's getting information from the West as well. How do you view what you're seeing and hearing from us? Is it more real, do you think, than what you're seeing and hearing coming out of Russia?
Yes, of course. Well, every country has some kind of propaganda, and that's obvious because if you are face to face with other countries' propaganda, you need to do something. You can't just sit and wait. So, of course, news from US and other Western countries are more real, and of course sometimes there are some traces of some propaganda, but you can always watch two sources and know what's going on in reality. There's no such option in Russia. And I must tell you that here in Ukraine, we didn't have such strong propaganda machine that was made for standing with Russian propaganda. But since the war has started, of course, we had to do that because it was just ain't a fair fight with the media. So when you just telling the truth and you competing with complete lies, your truth will always be weaker, unfortunately. So of course we had some kind of propaganda here in Ukraine during the start of the war, but it's getting back to normality, actually. So, well, you can trust everything, most of the things that they are saying on TV.
Well, you mentioned a very interesting thing there. You talked about the censorship that's going on in Russia. And if you want to make propaganda more powerful, well, you censor the other voices. And that's what they're doing up in Russia. I got to ask you, there's been reporting here that when Zelensky took power, Sergei, he censored or shut down 3 television stations. I think they were coming out of Kyiv. Now, you've got a great knowledge of the TV, and because of your
Yes,
wife, and everything. Is that true?
But well, that's not works like this. That Zelensky shut it down some stations. Of course, there was a very long sue processes, and well, basically those TV channels were getting money from Russia directly. So everybody knew that. And that was a very, very strong part of the propaganda machine of Russia, actually. So that's why these TV channels were shut down. And now a few more channels were shut down. Not because they have propaganda, but because they have some problems with news delivery, and there is sometimes they are getting too political, and it's not acceptable in the time of war. Everybody, well, I'm not a Zelensky supporter. I didn't vote for him, but when the war is going on, you cannot argue with some politics, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting darker because the sun is
it's going down. Yeah, it's getting late in the day there.
Yeah. Probably I should make some adjustments here. 1 second.
That's all right. Go ahead, and I'll keep talking here. As I mentioned at the onset there, Sergei's literally a rock star, and he's gotten to be getting bigger on the internet because of this conflict and his constant reporting, and which has been great coming out of Kyiv. I've got to ask you about this rock music thing, and again, kind of the music community that again you're very knowledgeable about. The name that comes to mind here in this part of the world is Pussy Riot up in Moscow. They've been huge, extreme critics. I think they've been jailed up there in Russia. What can you tell us about those folks, and what do you hear, if anything, from Pussy Riot?
Well, they've been jailed probably for a few days. Yes, that correct. But it's not about the music. Of course, it's a completely political thing, and I don't think anyone will listen to this band for enjoying their music. But yes, they it was like I think in 2012, 2013, and they really protested against a lot of things in Russia. Well, I don't know their goals, so I cannot say anything about it. Well, I know that they are really rioting sometimes. Yeah, that's true.
Literally. Well, that's great. Yeah. Let's talk about one of your most recent projects again that got a lot of bandwidth on the internet here. It's on YouTube. I'm going to maybe play a little bit of it here and hope that it doesn't get struck down in some way. But you did this project with American Pie. Tell us about that.
Well, that was an idea that came up just on one of my daily stream. Each evening I'm going live here on Facebook and telling people what happened today, the most important news, and just telling people that I'm okay, I'm alive, and sometimes we conversating with our friends there, they commanding, and someone put it in commands that, well, you could probably try to sing American Pie. That would be cool. Well, I mentioned that it's a very long song. It's probably not very easy to even to remember all the words in it, but I like it. Well, actually, it's one of my favorite songs, and I never tried to make a cover of it because I understood, well, the original version is so iconic and it's so important song for a lot of people in US. So it was I liked this song and I wanted to do that, but I understood that it's pretty challenging. So I just said, well, okay, if you will sing along with me, guys, I will do that. So just send me videos of you singing the refrain and I will do the rest. Well, I thought nobody will reply for that. And well, people started to send me their recordings. And well, I think I received like 40 people recorded their refrain. So I've put it all together. Of course, I had to accept the challenge because people started to send me the refrain. So, well, it took some time to learn the lyrics, of course. But I did. And actually, I like the result. It was... Well, the good song, when you sing a good song, you always can find some something in this word that where you can put yourself in it. So each line of this song was like something that's happened to me right now, and that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a little bit of the clip now. It's 10 minutes long. Like Sergey says, it's a long song, so I won't be able to play all of it. And but I want to give people an idea of what it's like. Then you can go to Facebook or YouTube and find it and watch the whole thing. It includes all of these people from around the world in different languages that are singing the refrain that Sergey mentions. And it does mean something unique to each individual, and it does to me. Now, everybody's got their own story with American Pie, but for me, my recollection, it was huge back in the day when I was of that age, when I was listening to everything on the radio. But a friend of mine, Mark Pearson from WHO, that name will ring a bell with some people. He passed away, and he had a guy with an acoustic guitar at his funeral play that. And my God, I like Sergey says, it really, the lyrics mean something to each individual. And it did, as far as Mark's life story is concerned, and grown men, myself included, I mean, we're weeping watching this thing. So I'm gonna play just a little bit of this here, see if I can bring this up, and then and Sergey's getting a little lighter there, so maybe if
I will try to fix the light.
Yeah, fix the lighting while I play it. Here we go.
Yeah.
A long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. And I knew if I had my chance that I could make those people dance, and maybe they'd be happy for a while. But February made me shiver with every paper I deliver. Bad news on a doorstep, I couldn't take one more step. I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride, but something touched me deep inside the day the music died. So bye-bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys being right. Say this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Did you write the book of love, and do you have...
Okay, so that gives us an idea there anyway. And that fellow's one of the people that have signed on to do the refrain. And there's a bunch of people just like him. It's really great. One thing that strikes me there, Sergey, and I know that you are aware of this, people think that recording in your car would suck. It really doesn't. A car can be a sound room, kind of. I mean, you can, if you have a good setup. I've seen people do podcasts from cars, and this is just stellar.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's got to be very gratifying for you to see all these people join in.
Yeah, that was really cool, and they even recorded it on some family gatherings, and there's a few families singing together, like 10 people, this refrain. So it was really, really cool looking thing, I think. So.
You know, I got a lot of... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody who participated.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, it's great stuff. Again, I'm going to put these web addresses up as we talk through the show, and you can go and check it out there. It's really nice. It shows the support and the love that's going out for Sergey and the country of Ukraine in these very trying circumstances. And I want everybody to check that out. And I've got a lot of political stuff and, you know, news coverage stuff queued up. I've got some decks to show, but I'm going to show my true colors here. What I really like to talk about, I like to talk about people, and I like to talk about music. I want you to talk, Sergey, I've wondered about this. You guys have a Chicago tribute band, and I'm going to play a little of you and your friend Vlad playing Chicago. But how did you happen to come to that choice? Why did you choose that particular band to focus on, at least you know, early on, as far as the band is concerned?
Well, that was not me. I wasn't in that band from the start. That was Leonid's choice, and that was just like a thing that he wanted to do for a long time. He was a fan of Chicago, and he's a fan of this kind of music, and he just made a birthday present for himself, and he just recorded the first song, and they shoot a video for that, and that became viral, like you say. And I joined the band like in a year after that. They made a few videos without me, and when they needed a voice similar to Peter Cetera, they tried to find someone, and it came that I was the one. But before that, I must tell you, I wasn't a Chicago fan at all. So, of course, I knew the music of Chicago, but mostly it was like songs from 80s, like their most popular pop ballads. And I never knew that they were actually a rock band. You know, because of all these songs like "If You Leave Me Now" and others. Well, I thought they just a regular pop band, but actually, participation in Leonid and Friends helped me to discover Chicago, because when I heard what they did in 60s and 70s, well, I was very impressed, and I became a fan too. But well, that's the story.
Yeah. Let me ask you in this context. Now, I remember, I'm a big hockey fan. You may not know that, but I still play men's league hockey. Kurt Russell, when he was asked to play the role of Herb Brooks in the movie Miracle, about the 1980 Miracle on Ice hockey team, he asked the director, the producers, the people behind the movie, now, do you want me to play this? Do you want me to mimic Herb Brooks? Do you want me to kind of do a hybrid where it's kind of me and it's kind of Herb Brooks, or you want me to be me? I mean, I can do any blend of that you would like. When you do Peter Cetera, when you're doing these Chicago songs, where do you sit in that, that realm?
Well, of course, when we started to record, the first recording we did for A Woman Don't Want to Love Me, it was just like Leonid already had an instrumental track. He sent it to me, and I did a few takes because, it's a funky song. Well, there's not much of things to copy there. And he said, okay, it sounds good. Just make few editings and sing me a few more takes and we will be okay. But after that, when we started to recreate more complicated tracks, we started to copy Peter more accurately. And sometimes it took a few weeks to go to the result we wanted to have. And on some recordings, it sounds actually similar. If you will listen to my isolated vocals, you probably will think that it original recording. So on the recordings, it was different on each song, but mostly we tried to recreate. But when you perform it live on the stage, it's completely different situation because the experience you had in studio, you should put it together with performance on the stage, and you should put the emotions and other things in your singing. So on the stage, it was half and half. So I had some experience from the recordings, but I've had to put something from me to be real on the stage, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to play this little clip to give people an idea. And this is just an idea now because this is Sergei's home studio. This is with his friend Vlad, and they're doing an acoustic version. Tell us about Vlad, first of all. Who is this guy?
Vlad is my colleague. Actually, we know each other like for 12 or 13 years. He played in a band, and there was one competition where I was a judge, and they were participating in competition. They won this competition, and one of the prizes was a recording in my studio that I was running there then. And we started to work, and Vlad was interested not only in playing, but also in music production. So at some point, he started to work with me on producing music. But then he left for China and played there in few cover bands too. And in 2019, when I was starting to tour, he returned to Kyiv, and I asked him to work with me because I needed someone to run my studio while I was on tour. And that's how we actually started to work together again after that. And he is a very good guitar player, sound engineer, and he plays a lot of instruments too as me.
This is a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun here. I hope this is a break for Sergei too, because the drudgery and the war that he's in the middle of, it's got to be mind breaking for him. But here, let's play this. This is fun here. This is great. Watch this.
Waiting for the day of day, searching for something to say, flashing lights against the sky. Getting up, I close my eyes, sitting cross-legged on the floor. 25 or 6 to 4. Yeah. staring blindly into space, getting up to splash my face, wanting just to stay awake, wondering how much I can take. Ooh, should I try to do some more? 25 or 6 to 4.
God. I mean, that's just great stuff. Just a couple of guys, a couple of buddies with an acoustic guitar, outstanding musicians doing Chicago, and that 25 or 6 to 4. I got to tell you, Sergey, I mean, that was very popular when I was young. I mean, we were into that song. I had a buddy that really liked it. And until I heard you sing it, I never knew the lyric sitting cross-legged on the floor. I never picked that out until I heard you. I finally understood it for the first time. And the other thing about that song is it's kind of obtuse, or it's kind of hard, 25 or 6 to 4. But I think the consensus is that they're just talking about being up in the early morning hours, being unable to sleep. And it's either 25 or 26 to 4 a.m. And again, kind of like what we were talking about with American Pie, where this fits each individual situation. Well, when they're bombing the shit out of your city or your country, as an example, you're up at 25 or 6 to 4 sometimes. Have I got that right, do you think?
Yes. And that was exactly why I started to, each morning I sing some part of some song, and that's why I started to sing it at some point, because that was a time when the shelling of Kyiv were each day, and mostly they pointed the missiles here at the start of the end of the night, I'd say. So when there was no sun yet, but it was like something between 3:30 and 6 a.m. And it was the most regular time when they shelled us. And of course, I couldn't sleep because air defense systems was working and they're making a lot of noise, the explosions. So you cannot sleep at this time. And this song actually was in my head by that time. And that's why I started to record it at some point. And well, it came interesting too.
God, fantastic. Again, folks, he's on Facebook, he's on Twitter, he's on YouTube. I mean, he's all over the web. I've had those addresses up there. You can support his family. He's got a lot of causes that he's asking people to fund. You can find all of that. I maybe here at the end, as we wrap up, Sergey, again, I could talk a lot about the politics and the military stuff, but man, I love to talk about the music and your music in particular. What would you like to wrap up here to kind of reinforce with my audience, people back here in the heartland? What should they be thinking? What should they be doing now as we move into, day 64 of the war in Ukraine?
Well, yes, but 64 days, of course, but we survived. And it seems like a lot of countries understood that there is no way back in this war, and Russia won't give up and won't leave us alone. So people understood, and a lot of countries understood, that they need to support Ukraine with weapons and other things, because till this moment, actually, we didn't have much support in weapons. Of course, we received some equipment, but mostly it was an old equipment from back of Soviet Union, and it's not very accurate, and we had a lot of problems with that. But it seems that like a lot of countries, including US, and we are very thankful for that, started to think how to really help our militaries. And let's hope it will happen in nearest weeks, because like a week ago, Russia started to make some advances in the east, but they didn't capture any city yet. So our military is still fighting back, and they just need some weapons.
I guess I got to ask that question. Do they just need some weapons? I mean, there are people here that are of the mind that you need more than weapons. There are people here also of the mind. I got to tell you, Sergey, that they believe you don't need weapons at all. They believe that we need a sit down and negotiated settlement here, a ceasefire. They're afraid that if you simply get weapons, your country does, that this will become two countries pounding the crap out of each other for years, maybe decades, and that Ukraine could be decimated as a result of this war, which other countries are fighting against Russia in a proxy fashion, where they're giving you weaponry and giving you support, wanting you to bring down Moscow, which some people say isn't possible. What do you think about that line of logic?
Well, that's really close to truth, I must say. But probably at the first weeks of the war, everybody wasn't sure how it comes. And, well, if Russia will invade the entire country, well, probably we should stay away from that, right? But after such big amount of destruction and victims of this war, it's just impossible to stay away or be neutral. That's obvious that you need to choose the side, and as you can see, it's not a side of Russia for most countries. Well, I think the majority of the countries. So, and there's a truth in that it can last not just for a month but for years, but it's already lasts for years, because it's all started in 2014 and we live in this situation for 8 years. Yes, it was not so full scale, but we lived all these 8 years hearing that somebody injured on the eastern border, or some soldiers dead. So it was like everyday news for us. So we just get used to it. So, but it wasn't on the news anywhere, when the Russia started to really invade Ukraine. Everything that happened here was on your news, on your main pages, but before the war started to be full scale, it was like somewhere on the background for all the medias in Western world. So yes, it could be probably last for a few years, but as you can see, we will not give in any circumstances. So we can just fight with our old weapon, or we can just receive modern weapon, and we can just put the army of Russia to its place, so on their territories. That's our goal, actually. So I don't think any of Ukrainians think that we should invade or destroy any cities in Russia. As you know, we didn't pointed any fire or missiles yet, except one to Russia's territory yet.
Yeah, and obviously with missiles or anything launched into Russia, you got to be very careful. We're talking about a nuclear power up there, folks, and some itchy fingers on some nuclear buttons, and some people that I think are a little mashugana. I don't think they're all there, so let's be careful with that. God, I just love this. This is a stellar. We got to let him go, folks. I mean, just like all musicians, he's been very generous with his time. The subtitle for my show, Sergey, is News, Blues, and Interviews. So I have musicians on it. Yeah, I have musicians on a lot. I love athletes. I love musicians. I love artists. I love people with talent, because I tell people I don't have any. And that's what I'm wanting to bring forward to the world is, people like you that can come on the show and share your talent and your knowledge and expertise. It's really unique. It's really great. He is the Edward R. Murrow, reporting from the rooftops of Kyiv. Kind of, it's just great stuff. Again, Sergey, thanks again for coming on Podcast by George LiveLine today.
Thank you for inviting me.
We'll get him back soon, I hope, folks. You stay safe, you stay well. And again, the best to all your family. I'll put up links on YouTube where you can donate to these support groups that Sergey has, and encourage everybody to do that. And folks, you know what I always tell people, if you like Podcast by George, if you like access to people like Sergey and this unique perspective, we had Bonnie Louise Brown on last week reporting live from Warsaw, where they're helping the refugees there. You're not going to get a lot of that stuff any other place. You can get it here. And the best way to make sure that you never miss a show, an episode, is to go to podcastbygeorge.com and subscribe. Sign up to any of the platforms there. In video, you can get us on Facebook and on YouTube, and in audio only, we have versions on iTunes and Spotify, the iHeart radio app. Some people listen there. We're even on Amazon Prime, all kinds of places. But folks, that's going to do it. That's going to wrap it up. That's all there is, and there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.